It's not possible to do it. Oh gosh. Now I've got something. You just as we're thinking that we're into a flow, immediately it comes up right in the middle of the screen. It says, this meeting is being live streamed. By staying in this meeting, you consent to being live streamed. Anyone with access to the live stream can watch or share with others. And I've got to press it and say, got it. Golly gee whiz. So where were we? Okay, so we're getting to that point where Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's praying and he says, oh Gopinath, I have no capacity. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaking. So what is our capacity? Yeah, we don't need to ponder that very long. We have zero capacity, but we do have the ability to hear from the acharyas. We have the ability to follow in their footsteps, and we have the ability to be intelligent enough to take shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishna, Sangopangasya Parshadam, Yagnai Sankirtana Praye, Yajanti He Shameda Saha. And persons in this age who have sufficient intelligence will take shelter of the personality of Godhead, whose complexion is not blackish, but it is golden. And he has appeared in this age of Kali. Rupa Goswami glorified Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Namo Maha Vadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. You are distributing Krishna Prema to everyone without qualification. And therefore you are the most magnificent of all incarnations. Namo Namaha Vadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishna Chaitanya Namani. You are known as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you're distributing this to all the different persons. And he's accompanied by his associates, his weapons, and his confidential companions. One of the great weapons that Lord Chaitanya has is his beauty. One of the great, I think may have been Jiva Goswami, who's stated that one of his greatest weapons is his beauty. So he was so charming and so beautiful. And we were discussing last night this subject, the night before, I think it was, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he doesn't come alone. He comes with his transcendental associates, and he displays such loving pastimes. And it expands the rasa, the pleasure, the taste. He interacts with so many of his devotees. In Chaitanya Bhagavad, there's a time of the Mahaprakash Lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he begins to manifest his divinity to the devotees out of his causeless mercy. And he says, do you remember when this happened and you were calling out? There's one devotee who was surrounded by soldiers who were going to kill him and molest his wife and children. So he knew this was what was happening, and he had no way across the river. He had run and come to that place, and there was no way, and he was praying, my Lord, please help me in some way. I can't, you can hardly imagine how horrible that situation would be. And then amazingly, just at the river, a boatman turned up with a boat and said, come on. And he went on that boat and he was saved. He went. And Lord Chaitanya said, do you know who that boatman was? I was that boatman. I came to you. And this devotee, you can imagine, just as I'm speaking, and I'm sure with you, there may be a tear in your eye, or there may be a shaking in your body, a shiver of some kind, something. So in the same way, this devotee, when he heard this, he said, my Lord, you love us so much that you've come to me, and I didn't realize that you were that boatman. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on in this way, and he describes to all the different devotees all these amazing pastimes where the Lord interacted to save and to care for and to show love to his devotees. There's another beautiful pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu later on in Jagannath Puri. Gopinath Patanayak, famous story. So he was, I don't know how much of the story I can remember and tell, but Gopinath Patanayak was one of the sons of Bhavananda Roy. Bhavananda Roy was the father of 5 sons, and Ramananda Roy is one of those sons, and there are 5. And Gopinath Patanayak was one of the sons. So he was similar in one sense to Ramananda Roy, that he was given a very senior position in the government. As we know, Ramananda Roy was a senior administrator in the government of the king, Pratiparudra. So somehow or other, he didn't pay the full revenue which was due to the king. So the king heard this and said, I want this should come in. So the story went that they approached Gopinath Patanayak, and he said, right now I don't have the cash money, but please take these horses, and these horses are very good horses at a proper price, and then the balance I'll pay soon, like that. So because he was very familiar with the king, he had a very loving, intimate relationship. And the king later on in this pastime explains that these 5 sons were like his own family members, and he had a very relaxed and intimate relationship. So he said like that. But the king's eldest son, the prince, he took advice from one friend, and basically what happened is they offered him a ridiculous price for his horses. And then because of that intimate relationship Gopinath Patanayak had with the king, he gave a disparaging remark about the prince. He said, well, the prince had an idiosyncrasy of turning his head and looking up high, and he would twist his neck. So it was like one of these strange sort of things. He had this. So Gopinath Patanayak said, look, at least my horses, they don't look up to the sky and twist their necks. So it was quite insulting. So the prince became outraged at this, and he said, take him and we will punish him. We'll punish him with death. And they arranged the changa, where you take it, I think it's called the changa. Is that the name? Anyway, I think that's the name. So they arranged that, and some swords are placed down below, and you're raised up and you're thrown onto the swords. And the whole story, the devotees, because he's actually a devotee of Lord Chaitanya, they go to Lord Chaitanya and they say, my Lord, you have to save him. He's one of your intimate devotees. And the Lord says, but I cannot, I'm a beggar sannyasi. What can I do? You want me to go and beg from the king? He owes 200,000 kanas of a certain amount of money at that time. He said, I'm a beggar sannyasi. I can go and ask for a few kodis, I think. There's different names of the different currencies at that time. He said, but you want me to go and beg? This is inappropriate. And then another devotees came, 4 times different devotees, even Swarup Damodar, the most intimate personal associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, my Lord, it's not befitting that you're indifferent to your devotees at this time. And he said, the Lord said, and Krishna Das Kaviraj says, to understand the depth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes is not easy, because there's different levels. There's the surface level, and there's deeper, and then there's deeper, and there's deeper and deeper, what's actually going on. So they are all appealing to the Lord. And the Lord says, what can I do? He said, if you want to save him, then you go to Jagannath. Jagannath is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All of you go there together and pray to Lord Jagannath. He will surely help. And so the whole story, it goes on for quite a bit, back and forward, trying to understand what to do like that. And eventually, the story, I'll cut it short a little bit, hopefully not lose the whole story, but the arrangement is made. I'm trying to think how it goes now. Just focus. The story goes Krishna. It's dropped out of my brain, and I'm thinking of different things right now. It's so Gopinath Patanayak is there. he can't, and it's getting more and more, and he says, I'll leave. That's right. Lord Chaitanya says, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave Jagannath Puri. There is no peace here. I'm going to be constantly disturbed. Everyone's coming like this. So I'll go to Alanath. I'll go to Alanath. And then the king is informed that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not happy, and he's wanting to leave Jagannath Puri. Then the king says, please, to different devotees, special intimate associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and also the priest of the king. And he says, please, you beg him not to do that, to please stay. And they reinstate. The king calls for his son, the prince, and he calls also for Gopinath Pattanayak, and they have a discussion. He explains, look, I didn't want Gopinath Pattanayak. He's like my own family. I didn't want he to be killed. I just wanted the money should be paid. And this is all somehow got out of hand. And he takes them down off the Changa, and they say everything will be okay. And he said, in fact, what I'll do is I'll reinstate him as the collector for that area for bringing the government funds in. And if somehow or other you were holding some money, it means maybe your salary was not sufficient, then I will double your salary as from today. And also I'll give you this special covering, this cloth, silken cloth, which will show that you are a very respected servant of the government. So he's reinstated, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a little unhappy. He is also from the confidential interactions between the king and the king's servants, and also the devotees. He hears that this has happened, and he's a bit upset. He says, this looks like this is to please me. I don't want to be involved in all this. And then it's conveyed to Lord Chaitanya that actually the king has done this, he's done it because of his very close relationship with Bhavananda Roy and his 5 sons. And he says, they're like my family members. This was never supposed to be that he would be killed. I simply wanted to realize the government's money. So it was explained very beautifully to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he sees that the actual intention was proper and that he was not implicated in this way. And then the Bhavananda Roy comes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with all of his sons. So there's Ramananda Roy is there, Bhavananda Roy, the father, and the father begins to speak. And there's very beautiful interaction. And then Gopinath Pattanayak, the Lord asked, what was he doing at the time when he was raised onto the Changa? And it's explained to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He would chant 1,000 times this Maha Mantra, and then he would make a mark on his body, and then he would chant, and he's been chanting the whole time. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased. So then when Gopinath Pattanayak began to speak in front of Lord Chaitanya, and he said, by your mercy, just a glimpse of your mercy, my salary has been doubled. I've been given great honor and respect. I've been given my collection area again. He said, but you have not bestowed upon me what you've bestowed upon my dear brother Ramananda Roy. You've given, that is only a glimpse of your mercy. He said, but I want the real mercy. I'm no longer interested in any of these material things. They mean nothing. Please give me that mercy. So this is a beautiful story. It's actually, I've only just touched on a few things. There's so many subtle and beautiful interactions of what is the way to speak, and who this is the king of Orissa, a very powerful person. This is the real mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's giving all of this to the most fallen. So I need a time check now. It's 6:46, so we've got about 14 minutes.
No problem. We started late, Prabhu, so you can continue as you want to. No problem, please.
Okay, but I don't. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. What I had intended to. I've got many things that I was thinking to do. One is to go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What's really nice actually is introductions to each of the chapters, because the introduction Srila Prabhupada uses is a summary of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he gives a summary chapter in his Amrita Pravavasya, I think it is. Yeah, and this one he doesn't he doesn't quote that in chapter 2, chastisement. That's another very wow. There's so many pastimes. The chastisement, one of the most difficult pastimes to understand. I've just been explaining a difficult one, which was the Gopinath Patanyayak and all the intrigue and how it's to be understood. One of the most difficult pastimes to understand is the chastisement of Junior Haridas. I don't know if you've had that experience, but it appears that Sika Mahiti's sister, what was her name? Can you think offhand? Can you tell me, Ambarish, or not? Sika Mahiti's sister.
Just one second, Prabhuji. I think I know.
I can find it if I look for it, but it just doesn't come to mind.
She was an associate of Radharani. Hold on, Prabhuji.
Sorry?
One second, Prabhuji. I'll give you the name.
If anyone else has got it, you can put it in the chat to Ambarish. And
Madhavi Devi.
Sorry?
Madhavi Devi.
Well done, Ambarish. So Madhavi Devi. So Madhava Devi was an elderly lady, and she was very exalted devotee. And I won't go into the full story here because it's quite a tricky story to understand. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, many of the acharyas have made comments on this pastime. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, he said that there's a number, and I think it was 10 points that he made to show all the different lessons that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was instructing through this pastime of Junior Haridas. One of the major ones was the importance of the stricture of the sannyas ashram, that anyone in the sannyas ashram has to be beyond any criticism and suspicion and has to follow very, very strictly. And we've seen in different times in history how the sannyas ashram can be misused and people becomes a beggar's excuse, just going around begging and so on. And Prabhupada mentions that throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita and also in Bhagavatam, that people would adopt that dress and then they're simply keeping like makat vairagya, like the monkey renunciation. So the monkey looks very renounced. He's no clothes, he's nothing, but he's actually keeping half a dozen or a dozen female monkeys, and that way so in a similar way people do that. They put up a big show, but in fact there's another pastime where that happens, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu come into the meeting of a sannyasi, but he's a grihastha sannyasi. So, and he offers them liquor, and they somehow have a bit of a it's a pastime. They interact with this person. They give him amazing mercy, but just by interacting with him for a little time, and then they go. They have to go. They accepted some fruit, I think it was. He wanted to feed them, so he was very attracted. Again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so attractive. So anyway, the strict application, and we see this again back to Vinod Thakur. In the name of Vaishnavism, there were so many sampradayas that had gone off the tracks in different way, emphasizing this and emphasizing that and not following strictly according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it all becomes watered down and changed and adjusted. And we end up that nobody's interested in Vaishnavism. It's seen as just a bunch of low riders, and anyone, the intelligentsia of Calcutta at that time, and religious intelligentsia also, were not impressed at all. No one was, it was a beggar's excuse for a living. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought it back through and showed, no, these are not the teachings. And when Bhaktivinoda Thakur tried to do that, at first he wanted to get Chaitanya Charitamrita to find what is the, yeah, he couldn't find it. It wasn't available. There were no copies. It wasn't available. So that was the condition of the Vaishnavism. So this, and even Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita, in the course of time, the succession is broken and the science as it is appears to be lost. So this is going to happen. That's the mature world. And guess what? It happens to us daily. You go to sleep at night and all that wonderful Krishna Katha finished. So all the stuff going on in your brain, get up in the next morning and guess what? You have to get back on track and we have to chant the mantras properly and we have to come out of ignorance. We have to get the passion, get at least enough passion to get out of bed, and then sattva. So we have to get to the mode of goodness, and that can be done reasonably quickly if we're onto it. So you get the cassette player playing or whatever thing it is now, your iPod or something, or you have pull a sloka, you get something to connect back to that energy. And when the mind's saying, oh, but what about this? And you've got to think of that. And what about that? And be quiet and just listen to the holy name. That's our business. So yes, I'm trying to bring that back. Where were we before? Ambarish, prompt me.
About sannyasi Chota Haridas.
Okay, thank you very much. It comes all, yeah, coming back that way. Chota Haridas. So that was one of the lessons that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati emphasized, and many of the acharyas make that comment. However, the one that really, I was reading this whole pastime last week, and what really piqued my interest was that one of the reasons that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada gave was, and this is actually an amazing point, he said he was actually highlighting the love that Junior Haridas had for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I thought of that and thought about it and listened to it and thought of, I said, wow, that is amazing. Because Chota Haridas, his life and soul was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was totally sold out, his heart and soul to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he would sing, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished Chota Haridas's singing. It was a beautiful relationship. Then he was told, Chota Haridas cannot see me again. And all the devotees made their pleas on behalf of him. And again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, look, if you keep, I will leave. I'll go somewhere else if you don't want to. So Chota Haridas. So for one whole year, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed no interest in Chota Haridas. So Chota Haridas thought, my life is useless. I have no purpose for living. My Lord has rejected me. But he didn't get upset at the Lord. He didn't give up his faith. He thought, my life is meaningless. So he left. And we understand through the whole story that will be explained there is that he left. He gave up his body at the confluence of the, where was that? The holy rivers. He took his bath there and left, gave up his body. But that wasn't known to the devotees. And only later, but it was just after a year, and it's actually was very soon thereafter, the omniscient Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, said to the devotees, where is Chota Haridas? And they said, oh, the Lord had not even wanted to hear the name for just over a year. And he said, where is Chota Haridas? And then someone said, oh, he left here. He said, we'll try to find out. And then when they attempted to find out, what they found out was that actually he gave up his body. He entered into the confluence of Triveni, I think it was, like that confluence of the different rivers that come, the holy rivers, Ganges, I think, Yamuna and Saraswati, like that. And he'd given up his body there. And then the devotees speculated, even the very exalted, in a philosophical speculation, not mental, but they were trying to understand. And at that time, I'm trying to think now how they heard the voice of Chota Haridas. Yes, that's right. They heard the voice of Chota Haridas. And then, I won't say who it was, but it was one of the very exalted personalities close to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said that he has taken a ghostly form, because we can't see him, but we can hear his voice. So he's maybe taken a ghostly form like that. And then it was explained, no, this is incorrect. This is not the proper understanding. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains that he has taken his spiritual body, his completely spiritual body, and he's in his spiritual body, he's singing like that. So he was so much glorified, and we can see how much attached he was to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So again, Krishnadas Kaviraj says, again, we should just hear these pastimes and accept them and gain the great benefit from hearing these different pastimes. His love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so much that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu somehow or other utilized that pastime to teach many, many lessons. And so if you want to handle me roughly by your embrace, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or embrace me, it's your choice. So this is the pure, unalloyed love that Chota Haridas had for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, where are we? Pretty close. It's an interesting place to maybe go at this point, but just to, I'll just share the three main reasons why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the intimate reasons, to distribute the Yuga Dharma, the congregational chanting of the holy name, was the external reason for the Lord's appearance, to usher in and propagate the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But it's interesting just to hear very briefly that the internal reasons are given as three. So the first one is to relish Krishna himself, to relish the position of Srimati Radharani. So Krishna himself saw that I am experiencing ecstatic bliss in the relationship of loving exchanges with Srimati Radharani, but the bliss that she is experiencing is millions of times more. And Krishna, being Rasaraj, the king of all rasas, he thought, well, I would like to taste that. If she's getting millions of more times pleasure, I would like to see what that pleasure is like. It must be pretty good. We do remember hearing that in Dwarka, when the Lord once, that's another whole story, but he saw a reflection of himself in a jeweled pillar, and he was stunned in ecstasy. He thought, wow, who is that? And it was him. He thought, wow, he's amazing. So in this way, in that sort of mood, he wanted to relish the position and see the position of Srimati Radharani. The second one is to understand and experience the sweetness of himself. So he wanted to see her position. They're very similar, but they have very subtle differences. And I'll let you think about them for the rest of your life. To understand and experience the sweetness of himself. So he wants to experience how she experiences in that relationship with Krishna, her position. Then he wants to understand and experience the sweetness of himself that's tasted by Srimati Radharani. And again, it's similar, but it's different, to enjoy the bliss tasted by Srimati Radharani. So those are described by the great intimate devotees of the Lord as the internal reasons. So Krishna does all sorts of things at one time. So he chastises Chota Haridas, but he also highlights the love that Chota Haridas had, that he couldn't live. You know, when we say that, you hear that in love song, I can't live without you. I can't live with, well, that was Chota Haridas. I can't live without you. I'll give up. So he gave up his body. But then again, so many nice pastimes. And I'll close by saying, this is another whole lecture in itself, but the wonderful thing about spiritual life is that we know that it begins from ado shraddha. Yes, we get a little faith somehow or other. Prabhupada would say like that. Some people come to the lecture and they sit in the lecture. They think, this old man talking about himself has something to say. Let us go and sit. We'll go and sit. So they've enough faith to go and put their bottoms on a seat and sit and listen to the old fella. That's what he basically was saying. He said, and then with that little bit of faith, they're placed in front of a Chintamani stone that transforms everything. And they hear him and they think, oh, Sadhu Sangha, maybe I should come back tomorrow night to the Pandal program, because that was interesting what he said about something. And they get a little bit of association. So there's the initial faith, then Sadhu Sangha. And then after hearing for some time Bhajana Kriya, they take up. The faith is still there and it's become a little more. They've associated. And then the sadhu is saying, you also should chant Hare Krishna. Let us chant together. And so they begin chanting. So the bhajana happens. And then we get to the point of taking seriously, the faith becomes stronger. And then we think, let me follow this, because I'm hearing if I follow this, there's a way out of all of this illusory suffering in the material world. Anato pashamam shakshad, bhakti yoga adhoksaje. By the linking process of devotional service, the material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated. So we hear that from the sadhu and we think, wow, I thought if I kept making adjustments here in the material world, get more money, get more this, get more that, that would alleviate my difficulties. But I didn't have that experience. They just went on and on. But now I'm hearing through this process. So they get serious. So we get serious and we take initiation. We formalize this. I want to be serious about this. Then this amazing time comes when we get to, it's called anartha-nivritti. Oh, anartha-nivritti. Unwanted, unnecessary impurities. So I have to work on that. And then the tendency is to think that's what spiritual life is. Spiritual life is anartha-nivritti. You struggle and struggle and struggle, and you go on struggling. But no, spiritual life comes after anartha-nivritti. And I quoted this the other night. It was a beautiful lecture that Vaisheshika Prabhu, my dear God brother, he gave a wonderful lecture. He said, the amazing thing about anartha-nivritti, just like we heard about Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying, if we can come to the point where we can cry to Krishna that actually, I've been struggling with these anarthas for so many years, it's been 5, 10, 20, whatever, 30, 40, whatever it may be. And on my own, I don't have this power. I don't have it, but you can do it for me, Krishna, please. And when we go into that mode, the amazing thing, and Vaisheshika was making that point, he said, the amazing thing is one day you'll say, where are those guys? Those anarthas are always around. They're always here, but they seem to have slackened off a bit. Where are they? So this is Krishna's mercy. The reciprocation is there. And it's going on all the time. And Maya's business is to say, no, it's not. But it is. We are always getting a taste. We get a taste. That's why we're still here. You have to. We get the higher taste, param drishva. So we get that higher taste. And then we need another bit of it and another bit. And we keep going and we keep going. So then we get to the point of ruchi and ashakti. So that is the taste. So as those anarthas start to wane in some area, again, don't be impatient. It's a ladder, the ladder of bhakti. So at the top, there is Krishna Prem. Before that is bhava. And before that is attachment and taste, ruchi and ashakti. So these things are coming. So don't be disappointed. And if we think, oh, I've been stuck on this rung of the ladder, Bhaktivinoda Thakur used that example. And we can't jump to the top. We want Krishna Prem, but guess what? You're on rung 4 of a 10-rung ladder. So you have to go and get from 4 to 5. Keep going. Don't be disappointed. Don't be frustrated. Don't give up and keep going. And that is the encouragement. And if we do that, we'll actually get to spiritual life. That's real spiritual life. And there's many verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam that explain this in so much detail. purport after purport. And Krishna will be there. He'll be cheering us along at the end of our sojourn in this world. And Srila Prabhupada will be so happy with us. I was discussing that point with who were we discussing it with? Shyam Sundar Prabhu. We were reading his third book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. So I was just sharing with him. I said, it's interesting that chasing rhinos. And I was saying to him, one of the biggest rhinos to land, you know, he would say in his books, he explains that was a big rhino. For example, when Srila Prabhupada sat or danced in the Rath Yatra, and the Rath cart, there's a beautiful picture of it in his book. And it's placed in Trafalgar Square next to Nelson's Column, 170-foot tall Nelson's Column, and right beside it is the Rath cart. And it's in the next day in the major newspaper in London, The Guardian, I think it was, it says something to the effect, Nelson's Column challenged by the Juggernaut, the Hare Krishna. So it was an amazing thing to do. This is the old colonial England, and the Juggernaut of India is there in Trafalgar Square. So it was wonderful. So that was a rhino. That's chasing a rhino. You're doing the impossible thing, and you're doing it. And that's what Prabhupada did with the help from a few of his devotees. So I was saying to Shama Sundar Prabhu that the biggest rhino at the moment I can see is getting ourselves across the finish line at the end of this life, back home, back to Godhead. Won't Srila Prabhupada be so happy? He'll be so happy that these boys and girls, they've followed my instructions. They've taken it seriously. They've lived together cooperatively. They've lived with their wife, and they've looked after their children, and they've come along this path, and they've come back. They've come back home, back to Godhead. And that will be the most blissful thing for Srila Prabhupada, and all the acharyas will be there, and Krishna will be there, and they'll all be cheering that these fallen persons, because they listened to this Swami, they've come all this way. So now Krishna will give some special permission to Srila Prabhupada to dust us off a bit more and clean us up a little bit and usher us in somehow or other. That's another whole discussion. Anyway, so I better stop. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Again, thanks to Jaya or Krishna Samparkan. I can't get that, but to my dear friend Jaya. And give me the name again, Ambarish, please. I'm sorry. Krishna
Samarpan Krishna Das.
Samarpan Krishna Das. So he's actually got such a calm demeanor. Ambarish is pretty calm, but his son is very calm. So he came on afterwards and helped me, and and I'm going, this is ridiculous, this is terrible. And he stayed very calm. and he got me through. So that's Ambarish's special weapon, is his son. When he needs a special astra, he brings Jaya in, and together they get it done. So thank you all so much. And Krishna, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Jai Srila Prabhu. It was very, very nice, as usual. Your class, your realizations, it's very wonderful.
I suppose as you're speaking, I'm thinking it's somehow or other, if we can cut through whatever's going on and somehow connect to this spiritual energy, then all the troubles go and we feel happy, and somehow, so that's all. We just somehow got to keep connecting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry for, please.
Oh, thank you. As we had getting you started with the program, I could not give the introduction, because when you started, I didn't want to interrupt you then, And so, as everybody knows, Jai Srila Prabhu, he is a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, is very kind with his loving wife, and Vimala Mataji. They both are are very much merciful to all the devotees here in Auckland and New Zealand, Yatra of Srila Prabhupada. And so many devotees, children, now they are no longer children, they are adults now, have gone through the hands and blessings of Vimla Mataji as well in the school.
Yeah.
And the school will not be, will be what it was without her presence. We just can't tread, you know. We just can't tread. But anyway, Krishna has his plans. And so Jai Srila Prabhu, whenever I request him to give a class, he very kindly accepts it, you know, even with a short notice and with a lot of issues, you know, with timing and technology and all these things, it's done. And ultimately it comes out big victory, you know.
Krishna, Krishna.
So now I think the next class we do not have with Atmananda Prabhu because he requested me. He was double booked. I was going to speak myself for the beginners program. Now, if anyone has any burning questions, I know he's very busy. He may want to leave now, but if you have any burning question or want to say something, then please, I'll give about 2-3 minutes to speak to him for his time constraint, please. Hare Krishna. Because many of you are from the beginners program, some of you are moving to intermediate program. So for many of you is very new, this whole concept, and meeting him as well. So please feel free. We can hold him for a couple of minutes if you want to. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it seems that everyone is fully satisfied and looking forward with anticipation to Ambarish Prabhu's discourse or discussion and presentation.
Okay. All right. Well, you had your chance. Thank you very much to you, all of you wonderful devotees. And Prabhuji, thank you very much once again to yourself. Please convey our pranams to Mataji. And also, would like to acknowledge and welcome Madhuri Mataji. I think she is not on the video, but she's on audio. She's here with us. She can hear us. Hare Krishna, Mother. Very nice to meet you online.
Hare Hare.
And when the COVID situation subsides and we can meet again, and then when we want to, Hare Krishna. I think we can see Nikunja Mataji as well. Nikunja Vasini Mataji. Hare Krishna to you, Krishna Prabhu, for joining us. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Hare.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna, would you like to sing Jaya Radha Madhava, please, so we can move.